I still have the text, March 14th, 2022, 11:47 p.m., unknown number. Hey, Lauren, you still up? I can't sleep either. That scene in the movie wrecked me. I was sprawled on my couch in the same ratty sweatpants I'd worn for 3 days, eating cold. Lo mein straight from the carton, crying over a Netflix documentary about penguins who mate for life. My name is not Lauren. My name is Elena Reyes, 31, freshly dumped, and absolutely not in the mood for whatever this was. I should have ignored it. Instead, I typed me, wrong number, but same. Penguins are brutal. The 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. Unknown number. Shit, sorry. I'm @Alex.me, Elena, and yeah, they really are. One mate forever or nothing. No wonder I'm single, Alex. I just watched my ex pick nothing 6 months ago, so solidarity. I laughed out loud in my empty apartment. A real laugh, the kind that surprises you because you forgot you still knew how. That was the first domino dot we texted until 4 a.m. He was funny in the way people are. When they're exhausted and honest dry, self-deprecating, a little mean to himself. He told me he was a carpenter who built custom furniture in a warehouse in Red Hook. He sent a photo of sawdust on his jeans and the half-finished cherry headboard he was working on. I sent him a picture of my penguin-induced mascara disaster. He replied with a voice note, low and sleepy, "You look like the kind of beautiful that doesn't need fixing." I played it 4 times before I let myself fall asleep. The next night, he texted first. Then, the night after that, we never said good morning because we never really said goodnight. We talked about everything and nothing. He hated jazz but loved Coltrane's ballads because they sounded like crying in a good way. I admitted I still slept with the stuffed giraffe my dad won for me at Coney Island when I was 7. He told me his mother kept his childhood blanket in a cedar chest and took it out to air it when she missed him. I told him I'd started doing the same with my ex's hoodie until I realized it smelled like betrayal more than him. 3 weeks in, he wrote, "Alex, I need to know what your voice sounds like when you laugh at something that isn't a text." I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I pressed call. He picked up on the first ring. "Hi, wrong number," he said, and I could hear the smile. His voice was rougher than I expected, like wood shavings and bourbon. We talked for 3 hours. He asked what I was afraid of. I told him I was afraid of being the kind of woman who peaks at 28 and spends the rest of her life trying to get back there. He was quiet for a long time then. I'm afraid I'll build the most beautiful things for strangers and never have anyone to come home to who wants to sit on them. I remember the exact silence after that. The kind that feels like stepping onto solid ground after weeks on a boat. We met on a Tuesday in April. I almost canceled 4 times. I changed outfits 6. I finally settled on the green dress I'd bought for a wedding that never happened and boots that made me feel tall enough to run if I needed to. He was waiting outside the bar on Atlantic, leaning against the brick wall, hands in the pockets of a denim jacket that had clearly been washed 1,000 times. When he saw me, he straightened like someone had pulled a string attached to his spine. "Elena," he said, tasting my name like it was something he'd been practicing. He was taller than I expected, shoulders broader. There was sawdust in the creases of his knuckles, even though he'd clearly scrubbed them raw. His eyes were the color of the ocean in November gray-green and impossible to lie to. We ordered drinks. He got a whiskey neat. I got a mezcal old-fashioned because I wanted to seem interesting. We sat at a tiny table in the corner and pretended to look at the menu. While actually looking at each other, he reached across and brushed a strand of hair off my cheek with the same thumb that still had a band-aid from where a chisel slipped the week before. "I thought you might be catfishing me," he said. "I thought you might be a serial killer who lures women with penguin facts." He laughed, and it was the first time I heard it in person low, surprised, like he hadn't expected to be happy either. We closed the bar, walked across the Brooklyn Bridge at 2 a.m. because neither of us wanted the night to end. The city was quiet in that rare way it sometimes gets, like it's holding its breath. He held my hand the whole way. His palm was calloused and warm and fit mine like it had been waiting. At the middle of the bridge, he stopped. "I need to tell you something," he said. My stomach dropped. Here it came. Married, kids, ailing mother in Florida. Something. "I've never done this before," he said. "Fallen for someone I wasn't supposed to meet. I keep waiting to wake up and realize I dreamed you." I kissed him before he finished the sentence. His mouth tasted like whiskey and honesty. He kissed like a man who'd been starving for something he couldn't name. When we pulled apart, his forehead stayed against mine. "Tell me you're real," he whispered. "I'm real," I said. And terrified. Me too. That was our beginning. The months that followed were messy and perfect. He would show up at my apartment on a Wednesday night with takeout from the Uzbek place in Rego Park because I'd mentioned once that I missed my grandmother's plov. He'd sit on my floor and let me trace the scars on his hands while I told him about the novel I was pretending to write. Some nights we didn't have sex, we just lay tangled together, listening to the rain and talking about the houses we wanted to live in someday. He wanted a porch big enough for 2 rocking chairs. I wanted a kitchen with windows that caught the morning light. He met my friends in May. Sophia took one look at him, carrying me piggyback down the street because my heels hurt, and declared him dangerously wholesome. He met my mother in June. She cried when he fixed the wobbly leg on her dining table without being asked and called him Mio by the end of the night. I met his sister in July. She pulled me aside in the bathroom at his nephew's birthday party and said, "He used to build tree houses for me when we were kids." He's been building things for people his whole life. Just never let himself have one. Don't hurt him. I didn't plan to. But love is never that simple. The first fight happened in August. He'd been distant for days, short texts, canceled plans. I finally cornered him at his shop after work. He was sanding a walnut dining table, the air thick with the sweet smell of wood. "What's going on?" I asked. He wouldn't look at me. "Alex." He set the sandpaper down too hard. "I got offered a job. Big commission. Some tech asshole in San Francisco wants a whole house full of custom pieces. 6 figures, a year, maybe more." The room tilted, and you're thinking of taking it. I'm thinking I'm 34 and I've never had health insurance. I'm thinking my mom's getting older and the house needs a new roof. I'm thinking I'm terrified of becoming my father, working himself into the ground for people who don't give a shit. I felt the words like punches. "So where does that leave us?" He finally looked at me. His eyes were red. "I don't know, Elena. I don't know how to want something for myself without feeling like I'm stealing it from someone else." I left without kissing him goodbye. We didn't speak for 9 days. I slept with his t-shirt because it still smelled like him. I wrote pages and pages in my journal that were just his name over and over. I gained 5 pounds stress eating ice cream. I almost texted him 100 times. On the 10th day, my doorbell rang at 11 p.m. He stood in the hallway holding the cherry headboard he'd been working on the night we met, the one from the photo. It was finished now, smooth, glowing, carved along the top with tiny stars and one single penguin wearing a scarf. "I'm not going," he said. His voice cracked. "I'm not leaving you. I'm sorry I made you feel like you were something I had to choose against. You're not. You're the thing I choose every day I wake up and get to be yours." I cried so hard I got hiccups. He carried the headboard inside and installed it on my bed himself while I watched, wrapped in a blanket, still sniffling. When he finished, he crawled in beside me and held me until morning. We never spent a night apart after that. In September, he asked me to move in. His lease was up, mine was month to month. We found a railroad apartment in Bushwick with windows that faced west and enough space for his tools in the back room. We painted the bedroom the color of the ocean in November because it was our color now. In October, he built bookshelves that wrapped around the entire living room. I filled them with poetry and romance novels and the stuffed giraffe who finally had a real home. In November, he took me to Vermont because I'd never seen real fall. We stayed in a cabin with no Wi-Fi and made love on a rug in front of the fireplace while leaves the color of fire fell outside the window. He whispered mine against my skin like a prayer. On Christmas Eve, his mother gave me the childhood blanket from the cedar chest. He used to drag this thing everywhere, she said. Now he has you? I cried again. I was starting to think all the best moments of my life would involve crying. On New Year's Eve, we stayed in. We cooked carbonara and danced to Coltrane in our socks. At 11:58, he got down on one knee in the kitchen, flour on his cheek, holding a ring he'd made himself, rose gold woven with cherry wood inlaid with tiny stars. Elena Reyes. He said, "You were the best wrong number I never meant to dial. Marry me. Let me build a life with you that's big enough for both our fears and all our mornings." I said yes before he finished. We got married the following September in the backyard of the house his parents left him when they moved to Florida. I walked down an aisle made of sawdust toward a man who looked at me like I was the thing he'd spent his whole life learning. How to build. We said vows we wrote ourselves. Mine ended with, "I promise to choose you every day, even the days I'm hard to love, especially those days." His ended with, "I promise to keep building shelves for your books, tables for our meals, a home for every version of us that's still coming." Our first dance was to La Vie en Rose, but the Edith Piaf version because he said Louis. Armstrong sounded too happy for how deep this felt. Later, drunk on champagne and each other, we slow danced barefoot in the grass while everyone else was inside eating cake. He pressed his mouth to my ear. "Hey, wrong number," he whispered. "Yeah?" I whispered back, "I'm really glad you weren't Lauren." I laughed into his neck, the same laugh he first heard through a phone at 2 a.m. all those months ago. Sometimes love doesn't look like fate or fireworks. Sometimes it looks like a text sent to the wrong person that somehow finds its way to exactly the right one. Sometimes it sounds like a voice, note that says you're beautiful when you feel anything, but sometimes it smells like sawdust and mezcal and the promise of coming home. And sometimes, most times, it feels like this, like standing in the middle of a life you never planned, holding the hand of the man who accidentally found you, and realizing the universe didn't make a mistake after all. It just knew you'd answer.